Well, welcome back to our virtual kitchen table and Protecting Every Future, which of course is our community of people who are tuned in and concerned about the very, very critical topic of family financial security. Always an important topic for all of us, but certainly in these days of the pandemic, even more front and center as families are navigating all the challenges that we've faced together as a country and community in the past year. So we're delighted today to continue bringing you really thoughtful, important leaders in financial security and particularly in the insurance space. And today we are very happy to welcome Doug Omen, who is the insurance commissioner from the great state of Iowa, and also happens to be my home state. I'm very proud of the distinguished record of public service of Commissioner Omen and so many great Iowans and all that you do in the state of Iowa. Doug, welcome. We are delighted to have you here at our virtual kitchen table.
Susan, it's really good to be with you today.
Well, it's I'm going to start with the basics because we like to, talk about these important topics in a way that we can all follow along. And the basic question is, what does an insurance commissioner do, and why is that important to me as a consumer and someone who thinks every day about my family's financial security?
Yeah, as an insurance commissioner, especially one from Iowa, we tend to think of ourselves as being really critical in the lives of the people in our state. But a lot of folks don't even know who we are, to be frank. Most Americans are very familiar with homeowners insurance, auto insurance, and life insurance. But they may not realize that it's at the state level that we have what we call fair insurance laws. That is, laws that are consumer protection laws that do protect consumers in the way they interact with insurance companies. So as an insurance commissioner, it's my primary responsibility to enforce those laws. As an example, insurance is risk-based. That is, insurance companies are allowed to group people together based upon risk. And our fair insurance laws allow us as insurance regulators to make sure that people of the same risk are charged the same premium. That is, they're charged the same rates for that risk. We also have laws that protect consumers from inaccurate information, things that might be deceptive. And then one of the most important functions that we have, and one of the things I consider to be most important in my job, is making sure that the companies manage their assets in a way that makes sure that the money is available to pay the claims when those claims need to be paid. Nobody wants to file an insurance claim. Those are filed when things haven't gone right. Again, whether it's a fire, an auto accident, or the loss of a loved one. But it's my job as an insurance commissioner to make sure that the companies have managed their assets in a way that allow that those coverages can be paid. I would offer to you in terms of our resources and what we also do. I mean, those are our main jobs, but we also take serious our responsibility to help educate consumers to make sure that when they're interacting with an insurance company or with an insurance producer, they know what to expect. And so that's who we are. That's why we exist. Every American has a state insurance commissioner that they can call their own. And that's both at the state level as well as our territories in the District of Columbia. So we have a lot of functions. We wear a lot of hats, but mostly our responsibility is to enforce those consumer protection laws.
Well, certainly as somebody who speaks from the standpoint of the insurance industry, it's very important to assure consumers that those long-term promises we make to you and from a life insurance standpoint or from a property and casualty or health insurance standpoint are going to be met. Because as you said, the moment of engagement is you've made this investment so that you have protection when you need it. And the fact that you are in there very thoughtfully overseeing all this should give people some comfort.
Yeah, we take that work really seriously, and I guess that's probably our highest calling, is to make sure the companies keep those promises.
You told me though once when I first met you that Yes, it's a complicated industry. It's highly regulated. You have to really know your stuff in terms of the law and how the business works. But at the end of the day, you took this job because you wanted to solve problems for people. Is that am I paraphrasing you accurately?
Yeah, there's the insurance industry is, again, it's something that often is unnoticed. And because of that, it's there when people most need it in many circumstances. So yeah, solving the problems associated with individual consumer experience, I enjoy that. And also the insurance industry has to anticipate problems. Certainly this last year in Iowa, we experienced what's called a derecho. Many people may not know what that is, but it's sort of a land-based hurricane. And again, those are circumstances that people, they need to plan for. They need to think about. At least they need to talk to an insurance producer about those risks. But ultimately, that's why I like my job. There's so much in our economy that faces risk, and the insurance companies and the insurance industry as a whole is so important, making sure that even when we go through difficulties individually or as a country, the insurance industry is there to help make sure we can get through that difficult time and return to our efforts at prosperity.
Well, and no more difficult or unprecedented time than the pandemic that we're still living through, even with the glimmers of optimism with vaccines and springtime and things starting to open back up. What, from your perspective, has the pandemic exposed in terms of maybe the fragility of individual financial security?
Yeah, and we're talking primarily about life insurance and annuities, in this particular space. But the reality is COVID has had its effect in the other parts of the industry as well. I would just offer that in savings and retirement, it has always been about the long game. In other words, you can't make decisions when it comes to retirement if you're going to be doing it on a short string. And so I would say it's never too late to get started, but certainly the earlier you get started, the better circumstance you're going to be when it comes to retirement. And so if you look at simple IRAs or Roth IRAs or mutual funds, just as a couple of examples of instruments that are used, those have actually fared pretty well, during otherwise difficult times. But if you're a small business person, a restaurant owner, and you've been in the circumstances due to the pandemic and the COVID, and now the response to COVID, I mean, the extended lockdowns have really caused a lot of Americans to put, to some degree, a lot on hold. And I'm guessing they've also had to put some of their retirement planning on hold. There were efforts made even to free up funds that may have been really intended for retirement to allow people to get through this. So I'd say your question raises a real common concern. What is going to be, the fragility? What are the problems right now? But I go back to your glimmer of hope. I would just say throughout our history, Americans, we have, as Americans, we've gone through difficult times. We've run, through harm's way and done well. And retirement's sort of the same principle. You can't really just plan for prosperity when you're planning for retirement. You have to think of it in terms of what is going to get me through the difficult times as well. And so I think our younger families especially need hope during this time. And I think that as we move forward and come out of, what was, I think, as we look back, going to be one of our more difficult times as Americans, I think it's in a way, it's time to start looking forward and to be thinking about that sort of renewed prosperity. States that are not open, there are costs and there are consequences with that, whether it's mental distress, but at a minimum, it's people putting retirement savings on a hold. So I'd say I'm ready to again return to encouraging people, and as an insurance commissioner, that's what I think we do. Is we have tools available to people to kind of assess where they are and to give them a sense of purpose that planning for that future is a really important part of being Americans.
Well, I think you said it beautifully, and the importance of having a plan, regardless of what your income is, but sort of thinking through all these needs and setting up your budget and plan that way. We know from all the research we've seen that that's the key, regardless of what your income is. So what are some of the tools that the Iowa Department of Insurance might offer to consumers? Come to your website, and does it give you some direction?
Yeah, I mean, every state has different programs. We in Iowa just, in fact, this month launched our Save for Later Iowa plan. We launched it with state employees, but I'm pleased to be on this program and endorsing and helping you in your efforts to do some of the same. But we do provide educational materials for those Iowans who are interested in saving for later. And you've already mentioned that one of the main issues is just getting started. I think I mentioned money market accounts, individual retirement accounts as a way to start, but frankly, how you spend your money, the people don't like to use the word budget, but how you manage your debt, how you manage your revolving credit, the decisions that you make in purchasing a home, should you decide that that's something for you. I mean, those choices are really important because, the funds that you're now earning as an income earning American, when you're planning for retirement, you're actually not thinking just about what you can spend today, but you're deferring your spending to a time when, another way of saying it is maybe protecting the income of your future. And so, that does require more than just making decisions about what it is that you're going to do with in your golden years, but actually deferring some of that spending now. So we have resources available here in Iowa on our website. If you're looking for an advisor to help you make that selection, we have resources to help in that. We have many of the assessments that I know you and your organization are making available to help people make those decisions about how to better allocate their current income in order to defer some of that income or make that money available in the future. But there's a lot of resources available. One other that I would mention as a resource is selecting your advisor. Not every American views that they need an advisor, but our experience has been, and I think a lot of Iowans have expressed that they do want somebody to talk to about how to go forward with that, how to make some of the selections when it comes to planning for a retirement. So we encourage people to be in communication with us, to look at our website. Again, I'm very pleased to be helping you with protecting every future and your initiative as well. But yeah, yes, we have resources available.
Well, you are so right. I think that all the consumer research says that people like the initial convenience of going to a website or getting information electronically, but when it comes time to make a decision, it's a personal decision, and it's nice to have somebody that you trust that you talk to. So tell us a little more about that. What protections are there? You really were the national leader for developing a framework that would ensure consumers can feel confident when they go to an advisor to get advice on annuities or what is appropriate for them in terms of their own financial needs. That they're talking to somebody who will be straight with them and really operate in their best interest. So tell us a little more about that framework.
Yeah, well, Americans, we want to trust and have confidence in our insurance and financial advisor. I think that's what we want. That's what we desire. So at the same time, I think Americans may differ in how they want to access that type of advice. People have different opinions about the amount of risk that they're willing to tolerate and how that can be balanced against their opportunity for gaining and accumulating more wealth. And there is a balance in that. That is, it's, you've heard of the risk and reward balance and how that is calculated. And that really is an individual decision. It's an individual tolerance, and it actually can be heavily dependent upon where you are in life. When you're younger and you're in a different stage of life and you have a little more space between where you are and retirement, you may be able to tolerate a little more risk. So what we did as state insurance regulators is we put our heads together in that way, because although Americans may differ in how they want to access advice, I think they all expect that they're going to get good, high quality advice, and that they'll receive advice that fits their individual circumstances, where they are. And so we work together to develop a best interest regulation that imposes professional obligations on all insurance producers. And we think that's good for Americans and for consumers. So what that standard does is it simply requires that the insurance professional place any interest that they may have behind their loyalty to the needs and objectives of the individual consumer. So it does require the producer to set aside any sort of view that they may have, or that they haven't. We all understand they're going to be compensated, but it does require that they be loyal to the interest and the objectives of the consumer.
Well, I think it's an extra assurance for consumers that are listening to this or thinking about going to a financial advisor, that thanks to you and insurance commissioners, those protections are in place. I will say, when you talk to people who've chosen this profession to be a financial advisor, that they have great personal passion for helping people, that they want to engage and do what's right. So you start with good motives from the advisor, and then you add in these extra protections, and I think people can feel very comfortable that.
Yeah, and Susan, I couldn't agree more with you. I think Americans want from their advisors, they want that interest, that loyalty to the best interest of the consumer. But likewise, I agree with you. The vast majority of financial professionals that I've had the experience of speaking to, and frankly, even being involved with as a regulator, they want the same thing. So I agree with you. And what this standard does is it essentially aligns what is the desire of both parties to that transaction.
So what's big on the insurance commissioner's agenda at this time? What's next? You tackled best interest. That was an important body of work. It was complicated. Yours was the first state really to move forward and adopt it. Other states are following suit. So what's the next big thing that you all are thinking about as insurance leaders?
Yeah, so I'm going to just say, I think we're up to maybe 10 states that have adopted it. And we were really successful under all of our other sales practice standards requirements. So I'll rest easy when we get it adopted by 40 states. So I'm going to keep working on it. We did adopt it here in Iowa, and a lot have, but I appreciate your efforts, as we've tried to go into those other states. But it's really important that we be consistent on that. As for other issues, I can't speak. One of the main things that concerns me is just sort of the imbalance that we've seen across our country in terms of access to some of these great products. And so I still will continue to work on financial literacy. Here in Iowa, that's incredibly important to us. We do devote a lot of time and resource as a state agency in working through public education and as well as private educators here in Iowa to make sure every Iowan has access to financial literacy, so that they're in a position as they enter adulthood to make good decisions and to be in a position to start planning for retirement. Because I think if you look over the course of time, there has been imbalance in that. And I think probably one of the best ways to solve some of that, especially along, with people coming into our country, immigrants, which we welcome, but also some of our more historical differences among race. The way, in my view, the way to really alleviate some of those concerns is to give people access to education. so that every person can participate in those promises of the American dream. So, and that's important to me. I mean, I'm a lawyer by trade. I've been a regulator for a long time. I've prosecuted a lot of different people, but both of my parents were educators. And I would just share with any of your listeners, that's personally really important to me as well. As for the regulatory side, there's always more to do. We were working a lot on the issues associated with big data and how artificial intelligence and some of the advancements that are available through analytics are now coming into the market. With that, there's good and bad. The good is that we think it'll probably assist companies in better identifying risk and properly pricing products so that consumers actually get what it is that is, recognizes their individual risk. The difficulty is that there's some of this stuff, it's just complicated. And we as regulators, as I mentioned earlier, have that responsibility of making sure that consumers are treated fairly. And so it's put a little bit of a burden on us as regulators to really understand, because technology is moving at such a fast pace. So you asked what I'm working on. As I said, some of it sounds interesting and exciting to some of your listeners. I like it. Not sure everybody would, but it's, as I mentioned earlier, I know the work that we do is really important for Americans, and for me, for people here who live in Iowa.
Well, the thing we say about insurance generally is that it really matters to people. So for anybody thinking about where to work or what to study in careers, this is actually a profession with the regulator side or on the insurance carrier and agent side, where we engage with people and we do a lot of really, really important good. I think insurance is underrated sometimes as young people are thinking about where the action is and where to go pursue a career. And there's a whole lot of action in insurance, and you can really feel like you're doing good work.
Yeah, Susan, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you're speaking to someone who gets all excited about, but I mean, the reality is that insurance does provide, in some of those most difficult times in life, a bridge to a brighter future. So again, it meets so many different needs, but I do consider it to be really an exciting part of our economy. I consider it to be really an important part of prosperity for all Americans.
Doug Oman, I think all of our viewers and listeners can understand why you are a leader amongst the state's insurance commissioners and a protector of the people. And we really appreciate you spending a little time with us at our virtual kitchen table, talking about what matters, which is financial security for all. Thank you very much. And to everybody participating, we appreciate your interest. Check out everyfuture.org. We really make education resources available so you can learn more about how to get involved. See you next time.